After a lot of struggle and facing many rejections, as you would have seen in my last video, I finally got my first job at Macca. It was an extremely proud moment because I can finally earn some money and be a bit independent. I'm still living with my parents, but hey, at least I can pay for my own things rather than getting my dad to cover the cost. My parents also get some relief that I'm not just sitting at home playing silly online games. So I started my first shift at Macca's at 7:30 in the morning and got trained by a guy who's very good at his job. It's super early, so the store's not too busy. It's the perfect time to learn. I learned how to make all the good breakfast stuff, scrambled eggs, all types of muffins. You get the gist. So far so good, the job's actually quite nice. Then lunchtime rolls around and the rush begins. I see crowds of school kids, office workers, tradies, tourists, all lining up, placing orders. The queue is so massive, it's nearly going outside the actual store itself. The beeping that you hear at Macca's, the classic beep, that sound right there starts going absolutely ballistic. That sound still gives me PTSD to this day. The monitor that shows all the orders starts filling up because people are ordering all sorts of different things, and I'm actually getting pretty nervous. But luckily we have a team and each person is manning their own battle station. You've got crew person number 1 who's in charge of white meats and cleaning. They fry the fish and chicken, which is stuff like McNuggets, McChicken, filet of fish, you name it. They make sure the freezer is stocked and they sweep and mop the floor and keep the area clean. Then you have crew number 2. This guy is in charge of red meats and CYT. They grill the patties, keep the grill clean, and make custom orders as they come through. Then you have crew 3 and 4. These guys are like the superstar rock stars of this whole operation. They're in charge of actually making the final burger and actually shipping the actual product. They have to be very quick when they make the burgers. They have very good sleight of hand and they memorize all the freaking recipes so they can make things very quickly, etc, etc. Not everyone can be successful at this job because you've got to be very quick and work under pressure. Especially when you've got like 20, 30 orders on the screen, you've got to be very calm and not panic. And then you have crew number 5, which is the manager, who is the captain who oversees the entire operation and steps into different areas to help out where needed. So I see this and I'm like, okay, we're gonna be fine. We've got a whole crew, we should be okay. Being a beginner, they put me as crew 1 to handle all the white meats. This is basically the easiest job. Or so I thought. Crew 3 and 4 are constantly shouting at me from their end to fry more chicken and to fry more fish because they're running out on their end and the orders are coming in red hot. They're running out of freshly cooked patties on their end and they need more to be fried. So I get on that very quick. I open the bag, chuck it in the fryer. Because I'm doing everything very quickly and I'm focusing, I don't yell out back to them to let them know that I'm onto it. So they shout at me again. Because there's so much happening in the lunchtime rush, the floor is getting pretty messy. So one of the managers tells me to sweep and mop the floor. There's all sorts of cooked and uncooked food on the floor. There's like lettuce, there's like uncooked chicken patties, and there's a whole bunch of stuff there which I've got to clean up. I also realized that we're running out of frozen meats in the freezer and I've got to restock, which is also going to take some time. And this is horrible news because customers are waiting outside and there's absolutely no time to go out and restock the freezer. I can't do everything at once and this obviously messed up crews 3 and 4 who were in charge of making the final burger, and this definitely caused a lot of delays because obviously they can't ship the final burger in time. Man, that first day started off really well during breakfast time, but after lunch, things just went downhill, but it's okay, we'll get better. Now, when I got this job, I was obviously very excited, but I made one big mistake in the interview, which is making promises when you're in a good mood or when you're in a mood of desperation, because it often comes back to bite you in the I was desperate to get a job, so I said yes to doing the graveyard shift or the night shift. Because remember, this is a 24-hour restaurant. We are always going to be open for business. They need people that can work during breakfast, during lunch, during evening and night, and then overnight as well. So it was time to pay my dues and finally do the overnight shift that I signed up for, starting at 11 p.m. and finishing at 4 a.m. And then on the exact same day, I had another shift at 5 p.m. to 11 p.m. Low-key, I was very excited for this because I'm a night owl anyways, and it's going to be an interesting experience because I've never done anything like this before. I went into the shift and it was actually pretty cool. I found a weird newfound freedom because I'm doing this super late at night. I'm walking around the city at like 3 a.m. in the morning in my breaks. I've never actually done anything like this before, so it was super cool to have this experience. Overall, my first overnight shift actually went pretty well. Obviously, there were a lot of drunk people coming into Macca's as they do, but whatever, we served them all. And eventually, over the next couple of weeks and months, things got better. I got good at the job. I got good at anticipating the lunchtime rush, making sure the freezer is well stocked, communicating well with my teammates, letting them know that the food is being prepped, the patties are being fried, the meats are being grilled, and they'll be restocked soon. And things generally got better. I got very good at the job and even started to train some new starters as well. And then, as they say, all good things eventually come to an end. Over my time at Macca's, I started to see favoritism between managers and certain employees. Most of them were from an Asian background, so they always stay with each other. They would often talk to each other and sort of just chat around and then get the other people to do the work who obviously were not part of their clique. And just in general, the way that they would behave and speak wasn't very nice. It wasn't very respectful. The management style was very bad from these managers. Not to mention that a lot of crew members that I was working with were mostly high school kids who were pretty immature and annoying in general. I specifically remember there was one guy who was about 4 or 5 years older than me. He was a bully. He had been there for a couple of years, so in his head, he pretended to be the manager and kind of just bossed people around a bit. One time we had an argument and I got super pissed off, so I went to the manager, the actual manager, to sort it out, but that manager just took his side and nothing really came out of it. A lot of the job is just straight up grunt work. I would finish up the shift and my face, my hair, hands, arms, even my clothes, everything, shoes, would be covered in grease and oil. It is just absolutely disgusting. Even though I wore the typical Macca's hat and wore gloves every time, they would still be very oily. The oil at Macca's is just something else. It's always in the air and it never really leaves you. I would always wash my hands and face after the shift, and still it would take a couple of days after that for the oil to finally come off. But then by that time, it would be time for my next shift again, so I would get oily again, and then I was basically stuck in this constant cycle of being oily. It is just absolutely gross. I would always get told to sweep and mop constantly in our shift, which is obviously part of the job. But for some reason, it became pretty embarrassing in a weird way. When I would sweep and mop, customers would often stare at me through the front, and I would feel extremely embarrassed, especially if the customers were the same age as me. I would somehow feel less than them when I was doing the actual duty of cleaning up, even though there is absolutely nothing wrong with cleaning and cleaning up after yourself. It is just a very necessary thing to do. But at the time, 17-year-old me felt extremely uncomfortable. Same as washing the containers, Tupperware, etc., getting your hands dirty and cleaning up at 5 a.m. and all of your clothes getting wet because you're trying to clean quick and all you want to do is just go home. Those were tough times. One time I remember I was doing a typical overnight shift. I was very tired, I was yawning, my back was hurting, you know, all the usual stuff. I was on chicken duty, and once it's all fried, we take it out and place it on the racks. Because I was very sleepy, I didn't really do it the right way, and that very hot fry basket that goes in the hot oil touched my arm and it basically seared my skin somewhere right here, and it immediately woke me up. It was stinging like crazy. It wasn't like a soft burn or anything like that. I think it was pretty serious, but because of the environment in that store, I didn't really feel comfortable to even bring it up to management. I thought to myself, it'll be okay in the next couple of days. There's nothing really to worry about. Let's just get on with work and finish up the shift and go home. And after about a week or two, yeah, it did fix up, but then it left a scar that sort of scarred for about a couple of years, which obviously means that it's a serious thing and I should have reported it. But the environment in the store just didn't allow me to speak out at all. This other time, I went to my 4-hour allocated shift starting at 7 p.m. I went to clock on and the manager on duty tells me to wait 15 minutes because there's not enough customers at the store at that time. From a strict money standpoint, it makes sense to not have staff starting up their shift if there's not enough customers because it doesn't make financial sense. But at the same time, it is extremely unfair because 7 p.m. is the allocated time that I'm supposed to work. If there's not enough customers at the store, that is just bad luck. I feel like managers themselves should be planning better for this, not sacrificing employees' pay just because they couldn't manage better. The staff still need to be paid, but whatever, I took her guidance because she is the manager and I just do what I'm told, so I waited 15 minutes. After 15 minutes, I come back up to start my shift and get told to wait another 15 minutes because there's not enough customers still at the store. At this point, I'm getting quite annoyed, but whatever, let's wait again. Now it's 7:30, I go back up and try to clock on again. Once more, the manager tells me to wait another 15 minutes because there is not enough customers in that whole half an hour that just went by. Now it is 7:45, I am absolutely furious. I come back up from the break room to the store. Can I clock on now? And this manager straight up tells me, I'm sorry, but I'm gonna have to cancel your shift. There's simply not enough customers in the store right now, but you can have anything off the menu for free. Yeah, thanks. Free food will certainly make up for all the travel time, getting ready to come to this hellhole just to make a few measly bucks and then being told to go home. I was so angry that I just walked away and went home and didn't even get the free food. Now that I think about it, most of these middle managers were basically all the same. All they cared about was looking good in front of the higher up managers and saving costs, taking shortcuts and exploiting young people, young workers, every opportunity they get just to look good. Oftentimes we would make orders but be stingy when it comes to the sauce. We'd put less sauce in, or give less lettuce. Sometimes we might make scrambled eggs with like 2 less eggs and just using less ingredients in general because it all sort of adds up over time. But it's pretty ridiculous because once again, need I remind you guys, this is a 24-hour store, okay? From a business standpoint, this establishment is literally printing money 24 hours, 7 days a week. It does not stop. I mean, do we really need to cut costs and cut a couple dollars here and there? It is just so ridiculous. On the topic of finding shortcuts, there's a survey called the Enjoyment Index that comes out every now and then talking about employee feedback of working at Macca's. One of the managers straight up told me that he can do it for me just to get it over and done with. Just weird things like that. I remember working in one of the graveyard shifts, my back is hurting, I'm sweating, I'm tired, and I'm hating it so much. And as I'm cleaning the oily equipment, I thought to myself, this is the absolute lowest I'll ever be in life. The only way forward from here is up. And it sounds very funny thinking back on this because relax bro, you're just working at Macca's, you're working at fast food. Stop being so damn dramatic. Life is actually pretty good. It's not like you're homeless. But at that time, to someone who's just feeling the real life and feeling a touch of reality, maybe you might be able to see why I thought that way. So after about a year of all that suffering and emotional, damn it, I started to look for other jobs and finally found one at NAP. I was so glad to be out so I can finally start to build my own career. I texted one of the managers to let them know that I'm leaving, and he basically said, just give the uniform back, thanks, with that damn emoji. No joke, this is a real text. There is no compassion, nobody really cares. You're just a number. I did get a call from the store manager about a week after resigning, which was pretty nice. That was really appreciated. But apart from that, nobody really cares. So what did I learn from this experience? I found a newfound respect for all fast food workers, like straight up. I know it seems like a typical entry-level, low-paying job, but the people that work in these places really do work extremely hard. There's a lot of stuff that happens behind the scenes that you as a customer who's just standing in the waiting area, you simply do not get to see. There's a lot of things happening in the background, on the back end, which makes the whole restaurant process actually workable. I now know the power of physical and hard work after standing around and walking around for hours on end without taking a seat. It does take a lot, and I found a newfound appreciation for people that do physical work like tradie work, especially for someone like me back then who just basically sat at home all day. Probably one of the most important things that I learned is communication. How do you work within a team to get the job done? How does each person contribute to make the final product? And how do we contribute to the organization's goals? That sounds very weird, but how do we contribute to the team's goals to ship the burger and meet the customer's expectations in getting their Big Mac sorted out very quickly? The other big thing is to not agree or make promises when you're in a mood of desperation or if you're in a good mood. Okay, these two are the moods you got to watch out for. If you're in any of these two moods, do not make a promise, do not sort of agree to anything because you're not in the right state of mind. You're not thinking rationally because you're clouded by these emotions, and it's not very good for like proper decision making. If I followed this advice, I would not have said yes to the overnight shifts, to the graveyard shifts, and I think my experience could have been a lot better. All of that sweeping and mopping the floor that I did in front of customers that were the same age as me and customers that would often stare at me, that taught me humility. Like straight up, it taught me how to be humble. Something that I think I was missing, and I feel like people that are young and in their late teens or whatever, mid-teens, they need to be experiencing this, and they definitely do need to be doing a job like this where they are placed in situations like this, because it really does form you and shape you in a way, especially going into adulthood. Like at the time, I absolutely hated it. I didn't like it, but I'm glad I did it. I'm now working as a banker in one of the big 4 banks. The days of Macca's are long behind me, thankfully. If you guys would like to learn more about working in banking as a career, let me know. In the meantime, check out this video right here, and I'll see you guys in the next one. Bye now. Suffering and emotional, damn it.